Welcome to the Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Scott Clark.
And I'm Dave Dale.
Dave, I hope you listened to, I think you were on site for Lisa's To North Bay with Love, her most recent one, where she interviewed the staff at Gateway Home Hardware up in Algonquin.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm so happy she did that show, and it was great to listen to. I think we all have like a story of Gateway Home Hardware. It's a special place. And is it a hardware store is a special place? Yeah, absolutely. It's a special place. I don't think there's any other store when you go to like even the big box stores and that, it's like, do you have you might want to go to Gateway Home Hardware. Everybody recommends Gateway Home Hardware. And it's like, that's my go-to place.
And you know it when you walk in the doors, you just feel it. Everybody is centered around you. People come to you and say, what would you like?
Mm-hmm. How can I help you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's over here.
Yeah. And I love when I just like see this bolt.
Yeah.
I need 8 of those.
Yeah.
And they go, oh yeah, right over here. And it's like,
oh, here's
it's
I'll break open the package. Here's 8. Yeah.
There's actually a little bit of, I like the fun of actually trying to search for something until I give up. And then I'll ask for some help. But there's so much cool stuff they have. And I think James said it best. Like he talked about, we may not be the most profitable, but if we service our clients will service us. They'll look after us. And I think that's a really powerful statement. And they walk the walk and talk the talk. And it's right. I would think like head office at Home Hardware, you carry too much stuff. It's not as profitable. There's probably 100 different things that they should not be doing, but they choose to stock everything you need, and they'll have the funniest little bolt that you can't find anywhere, but you'll get it there. And they have loyal people that will just keep coming back and buy stuff from them. So great show. If you haven't heard it, To North Bay with Love, just go to northbayecho.ca. You can download the podcast through there or through any of the favorite places where you download your podcasts and listen to Lisa's show with Gateway Home Hardware.
Related story. On Sunday, I went to Terry's place for breakfast. It was crowded. I was one guy, so hard to get a table. 2 other guys were standing there. So I was up next, and I asked them, hey, do you want to join me in the booth? Because I don't want to take up the whole booth by myself. Oh. Taking a risk to meet 2 people I'd never seen before.
I have never done that. That's a great idea.
It was cool. And this was...
And they had no problem sitting and eating with you?
No, not at all.
Did they know who you were?
No.
Well, probably that's why.
Singer. Good one. I like it. But the cool part is that I started talking about what I do and you know, the show. I had the magazine. We had a good chat. They liked that. And somehow we got onto the next podcast. And I said, well, the next podcast is actually Gateway Home Hardware with James. And they go, no shit. They rent a house off James. One guy worked there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's such a small town.
Oh, it really is. That's why I think, I don't know if you're going to do it or not as the content director, but I did say I would, I stopped in. I never usually stop in, but I said, I'm going to stop in there and get my lottery ticket this week. And to, what is it called? The East End
Variety.
End Variety. And I think they used to serve breakfast and stuff like that. I don't think they do that anymore. But it's just, the owner was in there. It looked like a hippie, like gray hair, long ponytail, everything really cool. And he was awesome. We chatted for a little bit, and I'm like, this is one of those things that I would like to hear with To North Bay with Love. Like, you know, these little love letters to North Bay and these really cool places. Because I bet you the people who go there have always been going there.
Well, it's the epitome of a corner store. Used to be. We used to be everywhere. I actually sell the Back in the Bay magazine over there. Plug.
He's always plugging his magazine. Did you ever go to, there's a famous picture, I forget who took it, but it was a small like convenience store, had lots of logos and stuff all over it. Was it on Algonquin Avenue or something, like Booth, I want to say, or?
Well, there's 2 that were very popular way back. There was the Billy Booth.
That's it, Billy Booth.
Yeah,
I think.
When I first got to North Bay, I think it was still there. I'm not sure. In 86, I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's interesting when something's around us all the time. Like, I don't think, even though I went many times, I never went to like Demarcos enough. I needed to go to Demarcos more because every time I went there, it was always awesome. You know, and you would have like a peanut butter and banana sandwich. Like, who serves that anymore? And soups were homemade.
I eat there all the time, or once a week for sure, because I had their meatloaf special sandwich.
Yeah.
Oh, it was to die for. You know, it was fresh. It was and Lisa and the gang there were just great.
It just reminds you that we have to support some of these places that we love, because they won't always be there if you don't support them, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to say, through Lisa's show, I went to the Himalayan Cafe last week.
Oh, cool.
It was so good. It was fantastic. So highly recommend. It was like, their special was like chow mein noodles with whatever type of meat you want. They had all sorts of different types of meat you can have. And then spring rolls. It was fantastic. It was really, really good. So they have like a try everything kind of dish, and I want to try that with some, traditional fare from the Himalayas. And so I'm giving it a shout out, and you have to try it. She was really nice. The owner was there.
Cool.
Yeah. So, you were humbled this week, which is rare. And I was like scratching my head while you did. So you on Facebook took on that DSEB had their big public meeting, which I was quite frustrated with when you were telling me the story about it. They did this survey to get everybody's feedback on where this homeless hub should be, but they never actually surveyed anybody.
No consultation by the consultant. Yeah.
How does that even happen, Dave? That's ridiculous.
Well, I did confirm with Mark King. I said, was it the time frame of the switch, the change of the CAOs? He said, exactly. It started with one, finished with another, and the board didn't catch that the report needed to be sent back before they released it.
But wait. If you're hiring a professional to do consultation within a community, because we'll do that on occasion, you can't. How do you form a report when you don't consult? So I'm not blaming so much the key people in this. It's the person you hired. That's ridiculous that they got paid. And I don't think it was a $5,000 job either.
Oh.
It would have been considerable money. And they didn't consult DIA. They didn't consult I said, well, at least they consulted the homeless. But no, they didn't consult the homeless.
Not the chamber either.
And not the chamber.
So what they did was they hired an advisor, and he advised them what he would do if he didn't live here.
Oh my gosh. That's maddening. So,
okay.
You read the different reports from the Nugget and Bay Today, and then you actually challenged the reporters on. No, you didn't. I see your
not
head shake.
reporters directly.
Okay,
let me lay it down.
Please do.
I certainly got humbled, and now I owe some love to Jennifer, if anything. Jennifer Hamilton McCharles of the Nugget. I didn't name her, and my
now you did.
Yeah, but what the apology was, and she was heading off on vacation the day before anyway, so it wasn't her. It was just that my key point was that they took the DSAB media release, put it up on the website, and all it said was submitted, but it didn't say it was submitted by DSAB, which is an old bone of contention for me. Any media,
so in the byline or whatever, it says submitted? Or?
Yeah, it just says submitted.
Okay.
But it was well-written media release coming out of DSAB that explained why they had held a meeting and what they transpired. And it was a pretty good media release. But it should have said, this is submitted from DSAB. Old bone of contention, because when we had editors, that would never have happened. And the Nugget no longer has a local editor. So I'm not against the reporters when I say these things. It's their system, right? That I'm still okay with, what I said, which was just exactly that. And then I gave some props, actually, to Bay Today, because they took that same media release, rewrote it, said it was a media release, and then added context. I'm still on good ground there. Where I left the solid ground was when I said, and neither gave enough attention to the fact that DSAB has chosen a place for a warming center this winter. I said, this is a big thing. I was not aware of this. Actually, if I look back in the records, I did a month ago on one of the podcasts say it's good that they picked it early so that they don't have to worry about it. But I forgot that. I'm 59. It's happening. It's happening already. Anyway, so I just said, basically, and I just named the companies. I didn't name the reporters. But
yeah, but there's only a couple of reporters per company. Like,
yeah, well, actually, Beta Days wasn't a byline, so that might have been the editor. I don't know, or it could have been Stu just rewriting it, and it just said it was staff. Anyways, doesn't matter. I'm making a point. I'm a media critic. I've been in the media for a long time. I can make opinions. This one wasn't on solid ground because the news had actually come out a month prior. Worst, I didn't see that Jennifer actually did some stories to bring that point out because the stories were posted the day before. I was doing the newsletter. I didn't look. And my post came on Friday and I hadn't checked all the reporting. So, slap me silly. And then, since then, I went back and started looking at her stories to see if it was mentioned. And she did 2 good stories about it. Because one of the recommendations by one of the gentlemen that worked at the Warming Center, Evan, was that he actually thinks it should be closer to downtown as well. But he was suggesting that it have a safe site for using drugs as well. Because one of the problems they had at the Warming Center is people who are homeless on the streets, some of them are addicts and they don't listen to rules, and then they had to deal with the overdoses. So if you're going to do it again, you should have a safe injection site. His recommendation.
Can I ask you a question about that? Does a safe injection site? I always thought safe injection sites was about transmission of disease and things, but it prevents overdosing. Safe injection sites?
Yeah, if you staff it with professionals that can analyze the drugs they're using, that they can see that they're not tainted with too much fentanyl.
So they'll even analyze the drugs.
Depends on the type of safe injection site.
Okay, sorry,
Okay.
I didn't know that.
So and as she was doing the first story, she noted that DSAB had already picked a location, which was at the Lowery shelter off Chippewa.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they announced in June 25th or so back then. And then she did another story because Mark King, the chair, wouldn't confirm that's exactly where it's going to be, right? And so then she did another story, and it was headlined well, that there's complaints about their announcement, and they're no longer sure that they're going to have the Warming Center at the Lowery shelter location. So she did some good journalism there. As I was saying a month ago in one of our podcasts, I said I've noticed the Nuggets been doing a lot more effort than I've noticed before. Mm-hmm. I like the newsletter.
I think their newsletter, The Nugget at Noon, actually looks really, really good.
I give it full props.
Yeah.
Props. Yeah, props. And we've said that. But, okay, so anyways, the statement's on my Facebook page. You can go look at it. I updated it a bit to say, oops, swing and a miss. Apparently some people don't think that was enough of...
Yeah, Jeff Turrell, I had lunch with Jeff, and Jeff said, he doesn't really apologize.
No.
He didn't apologize enough.
Well, Jeff can come to my face and say that, and I'll tell him about what I think, right? Anytime. Jeff and I have a long-standing relationship. We can argue.
You work together, and yeah.
We work together. We respect each other in many ways, and we don't always agree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that was actually a big deal. I said, oops. I thought it needed to be up higher in the stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it should have been. It's at the very bottom of the Beta Day story now. I don't know whether it was there the first time I read it.
Hey, if it's funny you said that line, because you taught me something. Because Jeff said something about our the podcast we did with the library, and I took his word. He said you didn't mention anything about how they were going to potentially transform the library and what is it, community? What's a CTS or?
Yes, the Canadian Career College's hairstyling.
Yeah, was going to actually
that was Al McDonald's big sort of.
And you never touched on that. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe we didn't touch on that. And like, I'm apologizing, right? He says, no, you got to dive deeper and da-da-da-da, right? And I'm like, wow. And I come back to you right away. How come we didn't do that? And you said, we did. And then it was like, so Jeff didn't listen to the whole podcast.
I don't
and then
think
was
so.
criticizing.
Because we did mention it, and then Don Curry said, yes, that was an option. So, yeah, it was mentioned.
Turl.
Yeah, right.
Turl.
Yeah, and which is cool. Like, media guys argue all the time.
Yeah,
we never
do.
agree with each other, and that's a healthy thing. Like, we don't take what people say, even ourselves, at face value. We argue and debate things, and that's good, right? So I had not done enough homework to make a statement. It wasn't a really critical statement. I didn't name the reporters. I wasn't overly like, you guys are garbage or anything like that. I still stand by it. I left it on my Facebook. I could have just deleted it when I realized I was in the goo, right? Some people do that.
So this interview that I guess it's a little bit longer interview. So let's get talking about Jamie Lowery. Really wanted to come in and talk to us about, he wanted a bit of a scorecard for this council. And it felt like to me, like he wants to hold this council to task. And you joked about even before we started, he's 9-2, like he's always on the outside. He's not on the inside when it comes to voting. And so I was kind of curious how this was going to go down. And I'm wondering how you felt this interview went, because it wasn't exactly how I thought it was going to go down. And it's not exactly how I thought he would come across. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How did you think this interview went?
I think it went well. Jeff won't think we drilled down far enough.
No, but we asked. I kept asking, why don't people like you? Because he comes across with a lot of common sense things. I go, that makes sense. But in the research I did, there's people that didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. They do not like this guy. But I'm like, well, he's talking common sense. Why is he always on the outside in these votes? And I actually was late for a meeting, and the mayor was there. And I'm not going to say what the mayor said to me, but he basically said about, you know what, Jamie thinks he's the smartest guy in the room in every room he's in. And he says, I don't need to comment on anything, right?
Yeah.
And so
that's actually a really good comment.
It is, right? Because like what he was saying, that's quite smart. But there's something more that I couldn't get to the heart of why he's such on the outside all the time.
Well,
and people don't like him.
I think the interview actually established a really good thing. And I know I think Jeff Turl would say that we should have brought up the Casselholme stuff and the Castle Arm stuff. That's the only place we didn't go in the interview.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't about that. It was about him being a councillor now and what he ran on and what he was expecting and what the position he's in, right? He's been ostracized.
Yeah.
Right, basically.
Right.
And that speaks to a big, broader issue, right? There's another councillor in the same boat as him who's made some comments about Sarah
Inch.
Sarah Inch is not 100% sure she can finish out this term because she's so frustrated and it's impacted her life in such a way.
She's been, the spotlight's been on her a few different times, right?
Yeah, right. And so I don't, that's not speaking out of school. She's wrestling with the situation. He's wrestling with the situation that he wanted to be a counselor and get some things done, and he's found himself, because he hasn't played the game, he hasn't done the tit for tat, I'll vote for this, you vote for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's in that position. And now he's frustrated. And as he stated, and you'll hear, he's not sure whether he's running again.
Yeah.
Or who knows, right?
I brought this up in the interview, but you would think a guy with the experience that he had, like on the bureaucratic side of council, right? In Brampton and Markham, and those were booming economies, right? Just outside bedroom communities of Toronto, and they're growing massively. You would think he would know the game, how it operates, how you manage all that, how you manage counselors, how you manage bureaucrats, all those things. And it's like he's at this stalemate, and then he's like, people don't want to touch him. He's like, and it stems
from his work with Casselholme and the big fight that was between the city and Casselholme over the funding issues, and he made some enemies that are still in the staff, and he's made some enemies with politicians over that. So that stuff doesn't roll off your back.
Right.
Maybe we should have brought it up a little bit more, but here it is. That's his problem. He came in after battling with a bunch of people, and he doesn't care what other people think.
Right. That was a big part. You and him, where I like to be liked, and you guys don't really care. But the part so why is it? So Chris Main endorsed him. Peter Chirico was at his kickoff campaign. There was a synergy of people coming into council for, rapid change, and we're going to make things better, and lots of transparency, and all these, and we're going to get this twin pad done, and we're going to figure out all these problems. And something has so those hard feelings you're talking about weren't generally with a lot of the councillors that he's working with now, but those hard feelings are real today.
Yeah. Mark King as well. He was on the board with Chris Main at Casselholme, and they were walking in lockstep with what Jamie was doing.
Okay.
Whatever that was.
Yeah.
Right? And for Peter, he's trying to deal with the issue of Castle Arms being taken out of municipal sort of control or representation, right? Mm-hmm. So he's been frustrated with that as well. There's a lot going on in the back scenes. That hasn't been solved. But it's very interesting. There's the reason why, one of the reasons why I didn't run for council was that. It would be difficult as an independent person thinking independently about each issue and not necessarily playing the game. I would be in the same boat. I'd be getting a 9-2 t-shirt too.
Well, this is a long interview, so let's get into it because there's lots to unpack and to talk about, and I can't wait to hear feedback because I think there'll be a lot of people viewing and listening to this one, and I really want to hear their feedback.
I found a solution to a little bit of what we could do to make our interviews even better. There are some people in the media that we may ask to submit questions ahead of our interviews with certain subjects. Maybe that'll help us.
What about actually I think that's a great idea. What about actually inviting them into this? Or does that throw it off a little bit?
It's a lot of voices at once. And
it's true.
It's one of the best things about our interviews. It's you and I in control, trying to do it in a professional way with one person being able to choose and know, like, they're not going to get grilled. This isn't W5.
Yeah, you're right. And then if you bring in, because some of the media locally have, probably we wouldn't get the same guests coming in.
Well, we all have baggage.
Yeah, I don't know. Peter Chirico's never said anything to me about you, but
you lied again. All right, let's get into this interview before you get in deeper in the goo yourself.
North Bay Echo is proud to partner with Twiggs Coffee Roasters, a part of the community since 1995. Twiggs offers a wide selection of quality beans, fresh roasted in-house every day. Find your favorite specialty drinks at our espresso bar, rejuvenate with freshly squeezed juice, or treat yourself to mouth-watering selections from our gourmet deli. And don't forget our irresistible fresh baked goods, including uncompromising gluten-free options. Twiggs has 5 locations to serve you, from North Bay to Sturgeon Falls to Sudbury. Order online for pickup at twigs.ca. And coming soon, you'll be able to order fresh roasted coffee beans direct to your doorstep from our distribution center in North Bay.
Today, we have one of Council's newbies, really, and he's going to give us a 2-year snapshot. Welcome to the studio, Jamie Lowery.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's nice to be in the studio again.
Yeah, right on.
There's a hot seat. You're like...
Yeah, a little bit of hot seat. Could happen. You're just coming off a couple tours with the Communities in Bloom. Real quick, tell us your involvement with that, and then we're going to skip into the meat of where Council's at and where you think it should be.
So as a member of the Clean, Green, Beautiful committee, it's really looking at the Communities in Bloom competition. I did it because in Markham, Ontario, and in Brampton, Ontario, we did. It was involved in that and sort of guiding those processes. And we went provincial, national, international wins in Markham, and then provincial and national wins in Brampton. So I have some experience, and I was a judge years ago. So I've been around the country to have a look at different municipalities. So they asked for a little bit of help on how to kind of present North Bay, and so I did the presenting. And it's the one thing to me that is always unbelievable in this Communities in Bloom competition is that you'll have people that have lived in the community their whole life, and if they are part of the tour or they're part of what's going on, it's astounding. And they say, "I never knew that." So there's so many great things that come out of it for people who live here that they didn't know that went on. And there's just so many great little stories and things that go on. And for someone who's lived here their whole life to find that rediscovery of a place that they've, sort of in some ways, take for granted and think they know the place, it's really is, that's the rewarding part. And the other part, I think the most rewarding part is to see the passion of the volunteers. Like, that was one of the overwhelming things for the judges, is that the amount of people that, the place really runs on volunteers. When I say the place, I mean North Bay. Think of the Heritage Gardeners, you think of the Legions, you think of all these groups, Kiwanis, Rotary. It is, an unbelievable effort that these people put in. You sort of wonder why. It's their own time, they're not getting paid. And it's just a labor of love for their community. And so I think that really was loud and clear on the judges' tour. So,
well, sounds like we had for one of the first times a qualified councillor running something like that.
Well, it was.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
What one thing that they were really impressed with that stood out?
Well, there was a couple of things that really stood out. The judges, again, one of the judges has been judging for about 10 years, and so they've been across the country, and they were absolutely blown away by the Cenotaph Memorial Park. They said that is the best and the most prestigious and well looked after park that they have ever seen. And most communities have some form of commemorative park of some sort. But they couldn't say enough about that. And there were two veterans that were presenting. Unfortunately, they didn't have as much time as we wanted to spend with them. It's a little rushed. But they took lots of pictures, the judges, and they remarked on a number of occasions how wonderful that park is, and it was the best. So it's something that people don't normally, think about when they think about North Bay. I told them about the iconic photo from 1925. They lined up the entire town, as it were, and before it became a corporation, and that picture is iconically in a lot of our public buildings, and it really does reflect the community, and you can see the buildings in that picture that are still there today. So it's a really important space that's often overlooked.
You are sitting basically in the peanut gallery of council. You've been the low end of votes, 9-2, I think you're saying.
I was going to get a T-shirt made that said that. It's, 9-2, or I get a sign. Yeah.
What are you most disappointed with so far as the propaganda and the campaign language and what everybody was saying and what you and yourself expected to happen when you got to council and you haven't seen yet?
Well, there's a number of things. Things are getting done. You can't just say there's been a complete standstill for the past 2 years. But I think the what hits me the most and was confirmed by KPMG is really that there's a seemingly a lack of a sense of urgency. There's no sense of urgency in to get things done, and people seemingly are working their heart out. They're getting things done, but when you have a report that says you don't do business planning or it's an opportunity, you don't do performance measures, you really it's disconcerting as someone. Never mind council, as a taxpayer. And again, I'm not here to really bring down I think that it's a wonderful city. I think there's some great attributes, but that's responsibility. Like, if you are going to invest people's money, You are there, your charge there, and your responsibility is to make sure that you are doing it as carefully and cautiously and, as smart as you can. And if you don't have business plans, you kind of wonder, are these ideas really thought through about what their relevance is, what their return on investment is, and whether, they are going to do what, council expects and the people in North Bay expect it to do.
Any examples?
Well, obviously the biggest example, and it's no secret with the arena. Like I'm not against the arena. I mean, I've been a proponent for the North Bay Mall. I have West Ferris to me is the place for it. And the judges were like, "Well, this is wonderful." Went to 176 Lakeshore. They were blown away. But for me, that it's not about the arena. It's about community building. And there are some programs that happen currently at West Ferris that are fantastically to magical in some ways, because it's bringing people together. It's seniors fitness that goes on there, put on by the Victorian Order of Nurses, VON, and people are flocking there. It's accessible, and so there. When I was in the pub on the other side of the fence in Brampton, every investment we made in that community, we tried to say, well, we have to replace a piece of infrastructure. How can we use those resources to make it more than it can be? How can we move the community forward than simply replace a piece of infrastructure? And that was similar with here with the Casselholme project. How is that now going to benefit the broader community rather than just replacing beds and putting more beds in? And so looking at the needs, looking at the trends, looking at the payback, looking at a business model and modeling the thing out, that's really how those projects really show success. And I think that's really where we fall down, or I believe we fall down. I believe we need much more process-driven decision-making, evidence-based decision-making in order to we can confirm that we are making those right decisions and investing appropriately.
Prior to the election, I think that what you're saying, which to me sounds like common sense, and there was a lot of people campaigning, that same tune was being said. What changed? What happened?
Well, I ask myself that question every day. If you look at some of the things I've put forward, the long-term finance, policy. Where was the public consultation on that? Like there was meetings, but if you looked at the minutes, it just said, we discussed this agenda item. There's no meat to it. So, where is that input? Where is that thinking? Because it came from that committee effectively. There was a little bit of, there was a committee meeting where I said, could we really open this up and say, let's talk about the casino money, for example. Let's talk about the MAT money, because what I've learned through community is there are ways you can invest that money and get way more out of it. Because there are small groups and medium-sized groups that could take a little bit of resources and turn it into so much better that is community good. But that was shut down, and it's all sort of put in a coffer in community services. So I just don't know whether it's an experience thing or there's we're not on the same page as a council to think that way. I honestly, Scott, I don't know, and I wish I had the answer, because I would work to try and to change that.
Just want to have a baseline here. Have you been to all the meetings? How's your attendance, and what committees are you on?
I've been to, I would say 9. I didn't been to all the 95% of all council meetings. I missed one budget meeting because my personal reason. I won't tell you why, but
we're all allowed to miss something.
Oh, I know that, but this was, it was horrible. But anyway, so. I didn't go to the there's a meeting about the long-term finance because you weren't allowed to talk. So you could attend these meetings as a council member, but you were not allowed to ask questions or you weren't allowed to participate. And I
what?
yeah, because it's a subcommittee. If you are engaged in that, then you have quorum. Then it becomes a meeting. So these meetings you go and hear, so they're pushing information out, but you weren't allowed to ask any questions. I suppose you could have sent questions afterwards, like attend, and then sent them privately to whomever. But there was no, because I know there were a couple of community members that had attended and asked if they could appear, and they weren't allowed to. So that exercise really was about presentations from staff and discussion about the strategies. And then there was a you have to read the detailed report. I'd asked for all the minutes, and the minutes weren't helpful, and because there were really no details in the minutes.
But you had access to what was being presented, right? Like it wasn't like
no. I asked for the minutes, and the minutes were very, in my opinion, they were vague. It was like we discussed this component.
But you didn't have access to the actual presentations and the information?
No.
That's interesting.
That is interesting. One of the pillars that you ran on was about transparency.
Right.
And it's what you're just saying now. It sounds like what one of the pillars that you wanted was complete transparency. That's how you've seen and run things in the past. What's changed? What is changing? Is anything changing? It doesn't sound like it's what you just said.
Well, again, a couple of, in the interest of transparency, asking for community input, publicly, for that whole financial component. Could we have a conversation with the DIA about what we could do with the MAT tax, because they drive a lot of things. And again, 9 to 2. 9 to 2 for that. I asked for some extra time for some presenters about the arena. No, we suspended the rules, but wouldn't suspend them for presenters. I don't know if you recall that
I wrote about it. Yeah.
So we suspended a couple of times, and I'd said, well, if we're suspending them for a council member, could we suspend them because there might be some extra time that these presenter, I don't know, and that was defeated, let's say. So there's been lots of occasions, at least in my opinion, maybe they're going to come back and say, you could have done this, you could have done that, but I've made those sort of those motions to try and get more access for people at council. I mean, if you look at the other sort of litmus test in my mind is how many committee meetings have we had? So the way it works is, and a fine friend of mine said, committee meetings, you end your sentence with a question mark. In council meetings, you end them with a period. So, where do you get to ask those questions? Seemingly the only committees we have are planning. I don't know if there's been any sort of deep. There's been a couple of arena ones that Councillor Mitchell had called and those kinds of things. But for the most part, if you look at the agendas, it's typically council meetings. And at council meetings, there's only a few procedural things you can do in order to, you could refer back to a committee. You can make a statement at that point. Generally I get the reports virtually the same time as the public. I mean, maybe it's a day or so before they're published on the website, but it doesn't give you a lot of time to respond and try and figure out what's gone on in the last 6 months, for example. So you really are trying to decipher what is actually going on. And I think my record, quite honestly, is that most times, staff are doing a great job. They are bringing things forward procedurally. It's those sort of other projects and other initiatives that I think we are falling down on.
It's interesting. Your background, you were at the city of Markham, city of Brampton, Casselholme here. So you work with many municipalities here. So I would think someone like you, even though Dave said you're a rookie or the newbie coming in,
yeah.
the new guy. Right? But you would also have the advantage of understanding the bureaucracy behind the scenes. So that's your superpower going into this.
Right.
Why does it feel to me that you're kind of on the outside and you can't seem to leverage the knowledge you know about bureaucracy to move some of the agenda items that you've put forward.
I think I just don't have. Well, it's obvious I don't have the support of my contemporaries on council for whatever reason. I can't explain it.
You had our current mayor. He was at your kickoff.
Yep.
You had councillors that were at your kickoff that actually introduced you and endorsed you. And there was more than two. Or well, you're the one, the 9 to 2.
Yeah.
What's happened? What's going on?
I've made it. I guess it kind of falls on my shoulders in ways because I have, maintained that I sit as an independent. I am representing people. I'm not part of a gang or part of a group or I look at each item that I can, and I think about bring my experience and education and say, oh, this is really this is how it could work, and there's really not a lot of appetite for that.
Dave, I want to ask you a question because you've covered council for many years. I always looked at George Maroosis, God bless his soul, that he was, I think you coined the term the wrench, right?
I think everybody called him the wrench.
The wrench, right?
Yeah, I coined it. Yeah.
So, but I don't think he was a part of any group. He was the wrench, but he seemed to be able to maneuver through the different groups at different times and that sort of thing. What do you think the difference is for Jamie?
That's a good
than
question.
a George.
Well, George had the benefit of many decades of family business, relationships, coffee chats, meetings outside of council, regular tabletop sort of discussions with a variety of people outside of council. But a lot of the movers and shakers were very well known to him. He had a lot of experience running as a Liberal against Harris, and he had some other political experience. Maybe a character where he could agree to disagree with people and have long-standing relationships. Also, I think the makeup of councils have changed quite a bit since his time, where there was experienced business people, lawyers and doctors and type of people on council who had long-standing roots in the community, but also a professional and service club experience, where like quite a few of them came out of service clubs, right?
There's doctors and lawyers and business people.
I don't think that compares to what we currently have on council. So I think you're dealing with a different eclectic group of people. Quite a few of them have very little experience in those realms, right?
I'm talking like Jamie's not in the room. So
that's okay. I feel like I'm in a council meeting then.
He's feeling comfortable.
But I find, like, anytime I've only met you a few times, and it seems like a nice enough guy. He speaks really well. Comes with some common sense things. It makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm the type of person, I like to be liked. My sense is, I don't think you care one way or the other if you're liked or not liked. Yeah, that's what I don't care. Which I think is a superpower.
Yeah,
that's a superpower. And I did a little bit of research, before you came in. It's like, okay, what are some of the questions and that sort of thing that I should be asking? I never got a lot of response, to be honest. But the one response I got, I don't think you're super liked. You're not. It's not like, I just disagree with. No, some people really don't like you.
I'd say. Yeah, I mean, I can go so far as to say I have been called names, in publicly.
In public?
In public, yeah. I won't go into that story, but
what was the name though?
Oh, this is not this is not an adult content kind of show.
Well, it is adult content.
It is content, but it's not.
Sure. But it's like you have raised the ire of some people that they're pissed at you, and you made that the comment about pushing it to committee. If I remember right, and you cover it way much more than I do, I think whoever they are, they knew that was coming. and everybody's like, let's pile on. If Jamie's coming, we are going to stick it back at, like, there is this visceral.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know why that is, because I thought a couple of years ago, you were sort of arm in arm with a bunch of people with change coming to our community, and we want transparency, and we have a better vision for the double rinks, and downtown is going to be, I have a vision for downtown and how that could change. And I'm like, and I know you said, I don't know, but you must have done something to piss off a bunch of people, and I'm really curious on you. And you have a political background, so
I think I have a political background, but I'm not a very political person.
Yeah.
I guess if you could say my claim to fame is, I don't have a lot of filters, and so when I see something that it just quite doesn't make sense, I call it. And I really do. I say, but I don't do it in a mean-spirited way. I say, have we thought about this? Have we thought about that? It's I can tell you, I mean, one of the things is that I've only sort of sat down with the mayor once in 2 years.
But so there's a good example, right? I don't think the mayor has filter. Like he says, maybe in my opinion, the way he talks to me, he has no filter, especially when he's talking about Dave. But I always had the impression that you two were lockstep, and then something has happened. But have you voted against him? Have you?
Not specifically. I mean, I think I think it's one of those things where, it may be a matter of control or being part of the, you go along with the group, or, where you're part of the team. You gotta, I had asked before I ran another councillor, I said, it seems like a bit of a phenomena to me when I was, working, not being part of the political part. I asked one of the councillors, said, is it traditional that all councillors just fall in line with the mayor? Like, is that kind of a thing? And the response was, yeah, generally speaking, that if the mayor says this is where we're going, this is where we're going. And I go, that's interesting.
But I've always envisioned that all the negotiation happens in the back, right? It's like because you had a platform, an agenda that you wanted to move forward, and it's like you all work together. You're not going to get everything you want. They're not going to get everything they want. I think that's how, in my rose-colored glasses world, that's how it works.
Right. Well, that'd be like horse trading, or chits, as they used to call it.
Okay.
I'll support this as long as you support that.
Yeah.
My viewpoint is what's good for the community. I mean, it's not about the horse trading. It's not, you could get things done, I suppose, but, is that a way to water it down? Like, to me, North Bay, we need an identity, we need a direction, and when things, and I said this in my campaign, it's like we chase shiny objects. Here's a really good idea over here. Well, let's go and do that. Then when it doesn't quite work out the first time, we find another shiny object that will bring us what we thought was going to be over here. We'll chase it. We'll go over here. And you can't run a city like that. You've got to stay the course. I'm not saying that's you do or die on some of these things, because every idea, everything, you're going to have to massage it. You're going to have to work with it. You're going to have to invest some more investments. But there's a real reluctancy or courage, let's say, to take those kinds of risks and chances for fear of not being liked or getting negative, or getting a negative comment in the Nugget or Bay Today or wherever. And that hurts our city. Because I think what was really impressive to me at the DSAP meeting about the warming shelter was building blocks, Tony Limina. I thought he said it the best. Have a business plan. Have the logic. Have that communication, that consultation. You're not going to please everyone, but you have to take all those inputs in order to understand what is our goal with this, what is our program, what is our plan, business plan, let's just say, in order to make the right decision that is not necessarily going to please everyone, but is going to drive the outcome that we're trying to drive. And that courage is hard to find, because people generally like to be liked.
I get that. I'm that person. That's me.
I mean, I have a really, really great family. I have a really solid group of friends, and they take me for who I am, and we can have spirited discussions. But at the end of the day, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
We may disagree, like completely, but we have these things. I'm allowed to present, and they present, and we discuss. And it comes from my father-in-law who had netties, and he was very much like that, and he was very the Italian call it testa dura. He had a very hard head, but he listened, and he would change his mind based on logic. And so I think that's the part, is that you've got to be able to have that dialogue, and you've got to have the confidence to disagree. And at the end of the day, if the vote goes the other way, I say, well, that's how the vote went. But you've got to be able, on other committees I sit on, health unit, community living, which is not a council thing. It's something I do on my own, and DIA. Those are the kinds of conversations that they have at those board meetings. They're not the get-along gang.
But wasn't the KPMG, wasn't that a mayor initiative, and please correct me if I'm wrong, mayor initiative to find out a way of grading how we're doing, and then this is what's come back, and now you're going to move it forward?
Actually, it was my motion to have KPMG, and I did it in lockstep with the mayor, to be truthful. And and they put it very politely by saying the opportunity is to do business planning. Well, that's the polite way of saying you don't do business planning. Mm-hmm. You need a performance management. Like, how do you, and the underpinning of all this is an ERP, which we don't have, which is enterprise resource planning. So what that does is it doesn't measure that someone cut grass for 8 hours. Oh, I worked 8 hours. It manages, just one example, accomplishments. So what you accomplish, or each individual accomplished that day, in order to now start to say, well, now do we take that data, how do we make improvements? How do we make it more efficient? Is it an equipment thing? Is it a policy thing? Is it all those things that are typical of a business? And so, that's what I'm saying, is that there's a lot of missing pieces in that. And, to me, I might have said, whoa, on this, on some of these big investments, is this where we should be going based on a business plan? Like, look at the flooding on Lakeshore. Like, is that telling us something about our infrastructure, that maybe the frequency of flooding, the global warming, is there more things that maybe, that caused a lot of damage to people's property?
Should have seen it last night, actually, coming home after that quick downpour. Mm-hmm. That was actually a fair bit of flooding. So let me ask you about Brampton, because you were on the inside, you're Commissioner Brampton. What is and that's when I go to Brampton, it's booming. There's cranes, there's things building, so tell me what the difference is, like a community like that, and I know they're bedroom communities to Toronto, but what's happening there where investment and building and all of those things are happening, and North Bay is at a different pace?
Well, I can't speak for. I mean, I do still have connections with Brampton and the mayor's office, in a small way. But I can tell you that when I was there, the mayor was relentless, and we're still friends. So Mayor Susan Fennell, and she actually came up to help me with my campaign after she said, "Why are you doing this?" Basically, she ran a tight ship, but she was a bridge builder. She built bridges with, she knew she had, people that maybe not liked her so much on council. She went to them. Let's talk. How can we work this out? How can we do this? So, and the staff, there were, I had to put a report card together my department did it. But I took input from all the other departments like HR and finance and all those things to say, and it wasn't just, hey, look what we did this year. It was a rolling 5 years that help keep me accountable to people, taxpayer and council. This is how much you spent. this is what you got. Here are my indicators that we're doing the best job we can, but here's where we're falling down.
And we don't do that presently in North Bay?
We don't have the capacity. I mean, that really what I see is that it's a budget. You either make budget and complete it either under or over budget. And then if you're under budget, you can, you take that bit, it's reported back to council, and it could be applied to a project that maybe went over budget. So, I always asked for, well, why is it? I mean, when I was commissioner, I got monthly reports of where we were, and my budget was twice the size, actually probably thinking about it now, probably 3 times the size of the city of North Bay's. And I had 5 really good directors, but when they worked for me, they were working. And they were accountable. Not that I was a micromanager, but I made, similar to Casselholme, you're the one that's responsible and you'll have to answer.
So I'm thinking if you propose that, or which would probably come out in the KPMG.
I have.
Yeah. That couldn't have fallen on deaf ears, because that was one of the things that Peter really ran on too, it was about accountability and performance indicators in the city.
Right. Well, I actually gave copies of that to a couple of councillors, about the report cards. And I gave it to KPMG. Like I talked to them, and the irony, of course, is that one of the leads for that knew me from Brampton, and he said, "Oh, do you remember me?" I said, "I remember you. Of course, I remember you." And so there was a rapport there. But that, one of the other questions on the KPMG, if you'd look to other municipalities, where would you look? And the first place I would look, quite frankly, is at this point would have been the city of Markham, because the mayor and the CAO there are, I've known them for most of my professional life, and they are, they look at everything as an investment. They do the due diligence to make sure that they're making the right decisions, and that's a very prosperous and a very competent team of that is getting things done. And I would say that in Brampton, they've got the luxury of being close to the GTA. They've got Bill Davis at one point coined the phrase "all roads lead to Brampton." You've got you got the 407, which was the latest one, the 401, like everything basically centralized through Brampton. So you've got a really good. So transportation was truly a benefit for Brampton, but. They are looking at ways to, when I was there, to maximize the delivery services. I mean, the mayor, when I was there, actually not just the mayor and council, we were not allowed to add. There was 0 ads of people, and we grew 100,000 people while I was the commissioner, approximately, and I added firefighters. Because that was under mine. And then if we opened up a new rec facility, I had to look to see if there was another way to staff it. And one of the things that was in that model was a community developer in every rec center. And why we did that is you can manage things and maintain things and build relationships if you are creating that environment where people are working together. So one quick example with arenas, Cassie Campbell Arena, the community developer there really talked to churches and faith groups and schools, and we'd horse trade there. So you adopt a park or a road or look after this, we're gonna reduce the cost of ice for you or your school. We're gonna give you a break on your rooms because you are contributing to our community. We are the community. We are going to help you as well to be prosperous.
Hi, I'm Natasha Lafromboise, sales representative with the Lafromboise team at Realty Executives Local Group Inc. Brokerage. We are a local real estate team here in North Bay. Our team of sales representatives, Matt Lafromboise, Phil Seguin, and Adam Legros, are ready to help you through the buying and selling experience. We have been providing service to the North Bay and area community for over 17 years. Our goal is to provide knowledge, support, and guidance in order to prepare your home for sale, bring it to market using multiple selling strategies, and get it sold. As a home buyer, we have 2 buyer's agents ready to help you find your home sweet home. If you'd like to know more, check us out on our website, lafromboiseteam.ca. We are always happy to help.
Let's get back to North Bay for a bit in the 10 years so far on council. What have you guys done for the first 2 years, and what needs to be done in the next 2 years?
We have thinner pigeons. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the bylaw against feeding pigeons.
But
it was
I
very,
didn't know that.
it was very,
I wasn't picking it up
very
there.
important.
Yeah.
There's a bylaw against feeding pigeons? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's yeah.
it was early on.
Okay, keep moving.
In any event, I think that, again, I mean, it's been sort of pushing that arena along. Makeover Main Street, which was needed. The pump track. And
things that were started
things
with the
were
previous
started,
council.
yeah. You know, you should have Dave here. But I mean, those are things we have done the review, which I think is great. KPMG, you know, did that review. They've made a couple of small tweaks in the organization, which I understand there will be some other shifting to make it more efficient and make more and a priority. But I think, quite honestly, I think that what has to happen is there has to be a relaunch of the city in some way to really look at the business, go down the next couple of levels and deliver on what we said we were going to deliver, which is our customer service, accountability. Look at the procedural bylaw, because the procedural bylaw is that's helps people and the window into city council. So looking at borrowing, quite honestly, from the private sector, and it's not a bad word, and shaping the way we do business and what is our focus. And our focus should be the residents, customer service, and delivering product and services to the community that are needed and at the best value we can. So really looking internally to get that done and being able to say to people, we've made wise investments for you, and this is what it translates into: growth, a healthier community, maybe, and things that aren't normally contemplated in a municipality. We're healthier. There's less ER, emergency department. There's, the funny you should ask that question, because at Castle Arms, we rejigged our model. And we just got a call from a caseworker whose family member was transferred from the hospital, as I understand it, to, got a place at Castle Arms. Well, Castle Arms, we offer activation. So there are social clubs, there are walking groups, there are ambassadors in all the buildings. And she called to say that person has had an about face of their health. They weren't communicative, they weren't social, they weren't out there, they were spending all their time, basically sitting in a chair. And within a few months, being activated and being engaged and being part of a community, they're now talking to people, they're now out walking, they're now social, they're now volunteering, and their quality of life has improved immensely. And what did it take? A very small investment, like minute investment on our organization to turn that whole equation around. Even at Castle Arms, we do every 2 years, we do a survey, a customer service survey. What could we be doing better? How are we feeling about that? How are we communicating? How are we treating you? And we've done nothing but get, our numbers, I don't think they can improve much more. And that's, 300 people. So those are things, I don't just say those things, I actually live those things.
Sounded like a really good campaign speech.
I know, it's fantastic.
Are you running again next term? Like, have you even thought about that? And what is your plan?
Hopefully I would get people that like me, but
well, you have to care first.
Yeah, you have to care.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right.
I've discovered
Forgot about that part.
Yeah, it's a flaw in my strategy too.
Yeah, I'm undecided at this point, to be truthful. I got into it, full of ideas and emotion, and really some enthusiasm to see some, because I think North Bay is a place where, a lot of people say we don't want to promote North Bay because we don't want people to come here because it's so beautiful. Like, why we would invite people here? Because we got a great little place that we don't want to tell people about. But just look, and the Communities in Bloom is a great sort of thing. Look what we have. And people got involved, and people, even just picking up paper and picking up garbage and doing all those things. It's a wonderful, amazing experience. And that, to me, is the missing link, is to make McIntyre, like, even look at the building. Have you seen a less welcoming city hall? I mean, they've got great flowers on the perimeter, but it should be animated. It should be welcoming and say, like, we want to help you.
The windows should be matching.
Yep.
That's my little thing. No, but you bring up a good point. I remember when there's probably some things I don't know about regarding safety of staff. But I find it fascinating now when you say about welcoming. So when I walk into City Hall now, I'm welcomed by a security guard, and then everybody's behind glass or some sort of protective barrier. So one of two things happen. The poor people that work there have been accosted too many times.
Yeah.
But when I first arrived in the city, there was always this lovely woman at the front, at the desk. How can I help you, Scott? Where do you need to go? And it was... And I don't know if that's a massive cost to the taxpayers of having someone who greets you when you come in, but it has changed. And I'm sure in many ways, safety. Like when you go into the elevator, there's like full scaps of how you have to treat everybody in the building.
Right.
It's a lot.
It used to be there's a nice lady at reception.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it made a difference.
It did make a difference.
There was, and I was talking to a gentleman that came back to North Bay after many years not here, and he has had some conflicts working with the city staff on a number of different things, building development permits, and his remark was that sign up there that says customers. He said, "I'm not a customer. I'm a stakeholder.
Right.
I am a client. I am not a customer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You should be treat me different than you would a customer because they don't treat you like a customer anyways. His opinion. I should be welcomed differently because I'm the one bringing stuff, paying taxes, and driving the cities into the coffers as far as revenue goes. So no, I'm not a customer."
Yeah, I would. You said, did you say stakeholder?
Well,
I think you're a shareholder.
A shareholder.
Yes,
That's what
I
he said.
I think the shareholder
That's what
makes
actually
more
he said.
sense.
Yeah.
Because they're paying the taxes, and that's was my point earlier about we're here to serve.
Mm-hmm.
And not that there should be no rules and those kind of things, but listening is a big part of that. Mm-hmm. And being able to again be an organization that's nimble enough to make the changes that in a changing world that are necessary. I mean, we talk about building, we talk about prosperous city. Well, you can't have a prosperous city if you don't have any place to live. Like you talk to a lot of companies, they want to hire people, but there's no place to live. And North Bay, or Nipissing rather, has made national news because I think we're ranked third in Canada for new Canadians that are here on a education visa or that kind of thing. Like that's pretty impressive. But that does have consequences. With housing and strains on the system, and so looking, as a council, I think our responsibility is to look at those things and adjust our strategy and look at. I mean, you have an overall guiding identity in what you're trying to, but things do change. Like the pandemic did change. I hear it every day from businesses and people. It changed the world dramatically.
We're going to be wrapping up real quick here, and I want to make sure that you bring up a point that you wanted to do in final questions.
I want to. It's interesting because I've enjoyed this. I feel like it's a bit of a campaign stop. It feels like I'm
not
ready
a campaign stop.
No, I feel like I want to vote for you. You're saying all the things I want to hear. I can't divulge that. Okay. But Dave, I have to ask you because I had lunch with one of our media friends yesterday, and they were sticking it to me a bit because they said that they feel that we have softball questions. And we have missed opportunities, especially when the folks from the library were here, said, you missed all the opportunities there. So have we been giving Jamie softball questions here? Like, because all the things he says make sense to me, but are we missing anything that we haven't asked Jamie? Or...
Well, no, I don't think we have, based on the conversation going, but basically, why are you here, and what did you want to get out of this?
Well, I kind of like the idea of having a midterm report and hoping that will, maybe you guys are more like than I am.
Well, I am. I know that.
Okay, well, good.
And I do know that a couple of members of the media are looking at doing that type of thing as well.
Right.
They're looking at a midterm report going into the second year, because it's a little early right now, but that's what they will do. They'll look at attendance, not only at council, but committees. That's why I asked that, because it's very hard for somebody to be able to complain or criticize or constructive or otherwise if they're not there doing what they should be doing, is observing, talking to people. And you seem to have said that you're engaged. You're just not in the inner circle, and you're frustrated with a bit of lack of progress in what you thought was going to be this council's brand.
Right. I mean, there's lots of issues like that, like the warming center. Here we are. It won't be at least another year.
Not like a homeless hub for sure.
Yeah, that's
they have already decided that they're going to do a warming center program at the low barrier shelter area. I was corrected on that. I thought it was new news. In fact, I would look back and I found out that I missed something there and forgot that they had already announced it. But I think that's big news. I would like to know the details of how they're going to run a program up there, because everybody is saying that there's a distance factor as far as people prefer to, when you're homeless, to be closer to the core, and then having to jaunt over there for a limited bed space. So what are the limits to the low barrier shelter? There's a lot of details.
Yeah, you're right.
But to wrap up for this, I just want to make sure so we're clear. Why you're here, why you think this is important. Do you think it's too late, and are you going to be around next time? That's what I was interested in.
I don't think it's too late. I think the sense of urgency and has to be found to get some of these things right. We've got opportunities to really, in my mind, to put our heads together and make the right moves. As far as being around next time, I don't know yet. I mean, it's up in the air what I would do. Because, I have to spend my time also. Like I feel like I get a lot of traction. I get a lot of things done in some of my other roles. And that's really rewarding to me. And I like to have frank conversations and be able to, engage people. And, it's that, and I don't know what it is. I mean, the like thing is one thing for sure, but is it because I'm asking tougher questions that make people nervous?
That's a good question, right?
I have made some, I do ask some very tough questions about how things work and what's actually going on. And if my role right now, as I see it, is, if nothing else, they got to do a bit more thinking and be a bit more careful, let's just say, because I will ask the questions given the opportunity.
I mean, say they. Do you say council or
council? Yeah,
council.
And I talk to staff too as well. And the responsive time on some things. I have a question out there about arenas that is moving on 4 months before I've got an answer from staff. This is the kind of things that you sort of scratch your head. Like, I'd asked how much, since the redevelopment of Memorial Gardens, how much have we spent, not on the arena, on that property, because, from other departments, because, there's pots of money all over the place. And what is the revenue, or what is the net benefit for the contract for the battalion for the city of North Bay and the taxpayers? It's great, and I'm not taking away from the battalion. I'm a huge hockey guy. I love battalion. it's those kinds of business questions, and to me, figuring out how much you spent on a building or on a property is, here's some, and I was told it's going to take at least a month. I said, well, I'll give you 2 months, but no more than 2 months, and that was a month and a half ago. The 2 months. So, you know what I mean? I think it's maybe it's the way I'm asking questions, or that I ask questions, or that people just don't want to. I have no idea.
Okay.
Well, maybe if you vote yes on a few things, maybe people will value your opinion.
If you look at my,
because I know what being a yes man gets you.
If you look at the record, though, I think that on mass, I do vote yes on things, because I do think staff are doing a great job. I do think there are some very wise decisions. The one sort of the bug in early on in the first couple of months, I put in about the ward system. It got referred by council to general government, and it hasn't seen the light of day. Yet all these other reports and all these other initiatives have gone forward. So what happened to that? So I guess my next move would be to bring a motion or email, the chair of that committee and go like, keep asa, or like what's happening with this? Because I believe that a ward system, people say watered it down. You're going to get people that don't. Well, you don't necessarily have to be in the ward to run. You could fashion it so you could be in another ward. I mean, it certainly helps to know North Bay is not a huge place, but if I had a problem on Lakeshore with flooding, I don't just call. I would know which council member
to call
is mine to call and get this thing resolved. Now you're working for that person. You are working to make sure that question is answered and that thing is addressed, and they may not like the answer, but here's what we're doing. But I think it adds such a great level of accountability for politicians and council members that it's that important. And I want it to be sort of in place, or at least looked at for council's consideration before the next election, because I think it's incredibly important. Accountability especially at the local and council level are critical.
All right. Well, we touched on a lot of things. We have a time element here. Thank you very much for joining us.
So are you guys going to be my friend?
No. I don't have any friends. I've been trying. Not really hard. Yes. Because I don't care.
He doesn't care. That's not exactly how I thought that interview would go. He said a lot of common sense things, but I still didn't get at the heart of why there's so much tension between him and other councillors and other people. And you still think it's just because he hasn't been there long enough, or he hasn't formulated those relationships.
When I interviewed him before the election as part of my package of interviews, candidates, I called him slick. He has a reputation of being slick in the boardroom, slick before and after meetings. He has a lot of good experience administratively. He knows how to get things done. He knows how to work around the rules. And that's how everybody kind of describes him. He didn't really like me saying he was slick, but he's slick.
But you touched on something. You did it. Usually when you touch on something twice, I'm going, oh, there must be something there. And you talked about his attendance record, and he said like 90%.
95.
90, yeah, okay, 95. But you touch on it a couple of times, like something that you weren't saying. Does he have a poor attendance record?
Well, I did notice there was a couple times his chair was empty. I thought there was might be more to it, and it possible.
Okay, so you don't have
I don't have any
concrete information on it.
And I think like Beta Day and the Nugget often do a scorecard on the councillors at the midterm. And that's one of the first things we usually do is look at attendance. It's not just at council meetings, but committee meetings, and what committee meetings, and who has more council work than others, right? He actually has some other duties with other committees outside of his council committees as well. I'm not sure if everybody's going to take that into account. But he did say he didn't attend the long-term financial meetings because he wasn't going to be able to say anything, right? So there was that. That did come up in one of the council meetings. So I don't. There's a little ammo there for people who don't like him. A little bit.
The one thing I didn't bring up, and I'm just thinking of it now, is Al McDonald's Report North Bay. They did some sort of survey.
Oh, what's that?
What's what?
Report what?
Stop it. It's Al McDonald's Report North Bay, and it had it was something like which councillors do you trust the most or whatever.
I have a little survey going.
I think Tanya Vrabrosh was had the biggest number, but Jamie he wasn't even on the scale.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the public knows who he is, even though he was voted in. They must.
Ben, do you mind going to Report North Bay's website and see exactly what the poll is? For our audio-only listeners, what's it say? Which North Bay City councillors do you have the most confidence in? Oh, okay.
And Jamie Lowery isn't on there.
He is on the bottom legend, though, so I guess nobody voted for him.
Well, yeah.
But there's also, I think there's a couple of people on here that haven't.
Who else is not rate?
Gary Gardner's not on here.
Oh.
Sarah Inch is not on here.
Yeah,
so there's
I've heard a couple people say that they thought Gary would be doing a little bit more grist in the mill kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I think I've really liked Gary and his thought process and where he's going, but I don't think his style is to bang on the table.
No,
right? And I think sometimes people who bang on the table, who just want to be heard, will move the meter.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think Gary's a super smart guy that's doing work in the background.
I've seen him actually asking good questions at some of the meetings, some solid stuff. It looks like he's done his homework. So I'm not saying he hasn't, but I've heard people say that they thought he was going to be a little bit more gritty. And what was the poll about the 16 months in?
It's just how would you rate the first 16 months? So most people said fair. So kind of middle of the road.
Bad.
Most people said terrible. Terrible's 29.17%.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, terrible.
And the next...
So wait a second. So if you look at those numbers, depending on how you look at it, so 50% of people who voted said it was bad to terrible. Is there anything about the mayor in this poll? Because I find it interesting. Wouldn't Al absolutely put something in this poll about the mayor?
I would if
technically this is the mayor and council. So, but nothing.
What other
questions?
questions?
From the mayor.
No,
that's it. There is.
How did the mayor rate on the confidence thing?
He's not on it.
Oh. No, yeah, that's why I'm surprised. Remember, Peter's campaign took a major shot at Al outgoing, right?
Yeah,
was which backfired. So I would have thought,
yeah,
maybe take a shot back.
So Jamie, Sarah, Peter, and Gary are all not rating on this particular poll yet about confidence.
And Sarah was one of the top dogs, right?
I think she placed 4th or something like that.
Yeah, 4th.
Did very well. 4th or 5th. Anyways, this has been fun. What do you... we can't even talk. This one's going to be after the civic holiday weekend. Oh, another plug for the Leon's fundraiser for the Nipissing singing contest, country singing contest, with the N7 cattle company that we did a podcast about.
Yeah, I got to get some of their meat.
Yeah, I think it's on the 8th and the 9th.
Yeah.
$7 burgers. Ooh. It's good meat.
All right. Thanks for joining us on the Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Dave Dale.
And I'm Scott Clark. Make sure you go to northbayecho.ca. You can subscribe to our newsletter that arrives in your inbox every Tuesday and Thursday. Until then, we'll see you next time.
And the newsletter that's going out today that I'm doing will have some props to Jennifer Hamilton McCharles and Nugget for doing good journalism.